There is a kind of man who speaks more with silence than with words, whose days are marked by the rising and falling of crows above a chapel roof. Thomas Grayson was such a man. He lived in the church house behind Saint Ligeia's, a lean chapel choked in ivy and half swallowed by a cemetery older than any living soul could remember. His duties were few but sacred: tend the grounds, dig the graves, light the chapel candles, and lock the church doors at dusk. His hands were worn stone, his face wind-burnished and hollow-cheeked. He had once loved poetry, but now he recited only names carved into moss-darkened stones. But even the most lichen-covered man may find spring in his steps again, should love take root. And somehow, impossibly, it did. Clara came like sunlight into the dim corridors of his life, a radiant thing, bright eyes, auburn hair, and laughter like wind chimes stirred by hummingbirds. The villagers shook their heads in wonder. What would such a luminous creature want with a mossy, leathery, cemetery ghost of a man? She saw something in him no one else could, or perhaps she, too, harboured secrets, and the graveyard's hush was not silence to her, but kinship. And then came the labour. It was a brutal thing, as if the storm that would later arrive had chosen first to announce itself through Clara's screams. She howled beneath the rafters of their cottage, ringed by flickering candles. Only Thomas and the midwife were there, he, pale and mute, and she, gritting her teeth, muttering prayers. The baby would not come easily. Hours passed, then a rush of blood, then silence. Clara clutched at Thomas, her face waxen, her breath a-tremble. She pulled him close and whispered something, ancient and strange, into his ear. He stared at her, not understanding. Her mouth formed the words again, fainter. Then her head fell back. The midwife was hunched over the baby now, working furiously to coax breath. Thomas set Clara's head down gently and numbly reached for a pencil and hymn sheet from the table. He wrote the words phonetically. When he turned, the midwife's face was streaming with tears. She held the limp, blue form in trembling arms and handed it to him, crying out loud now, inconsolable. Thomas took the child and sat in the corner, and there he stayed, weeping in the kind of silence that shadows stone, until every candle flickered its last, and the room went black. He buried Clara the next morning. She had chosen her plot years before, curious thing, as she'd been young and laughing when she bought the double space. She'd said it was for peace of mind. Thomas had always thought the second plot was for himself. Now, as the sun dimmed and storm clouds gathered above the chapel, Thomas turned to the second grave, the one meant for the child. He dug slowly, the spade biting into earth already softened by sorrow. The sky was bruising purple, and the first wind of the storm coiled around him like a serpent. Clang! The shovel struck something 5 feet down, not stone, not root, something hollow. He dropped to his knees, pulse pounding. He clawed at the muck with bare hands until the shape revealed itself. A small coffin, black as ashwood, just large enough for a child. It was not decayed. Its brass handles gleamed beneath the filth. The hinges showed no rust. With a grunt, he hauled it from the grave, just as thunder cracked, and a deluge began to pour. Water rushed into the pit behind him. Dragging it to the workshed by the church, he slammed the door against the storm, lit the oil lamp, and placed the coffin on the table. His hands trembled as he wiped it clean. Ornate engravings rose beneath the grime, symbols of no liturgy he knew. Spirals, crescent moons, a sun with a black center. He hesitated only a moment before slipping a chisel beneath the lid. A gentle pomp echoed through the shed. Then he opened it. It was empty. Inside, red, embroidered silk shimmered like rubies. Gold lining glimmered like a child's crown. It smelled not of dust or grave mould, but of honeysuckle and clover, of life. Thomas stared, numb. Then, without thinking, he whispered, "Forgive me," and fetched the tiny linen-wrapped bundle from the chapel. He placed her in the coffin, just for the night, he told himself, until the ground dried, until the storm passed. He did not sleep, and before the grey light of dawn, he heard crying. The sound came from the tiny box. He opened the lid. She blinked at him, alive, red-faced and wailing, her tiny fists curled against the embroidered silk. Thomas dropped to his knees. He named her Ava. She was everything, his light and life. He cherished her with all his heart and raised her well to be kind and caring. From the start, she had a radiant and cheerful way about her, but she created her very own light. Years raced by. The girl grew tall and bright-eyed, a flash of summer sunlight through the cemetery's fog. Her laughter filled the chapel. She fed the crows from her paws. Thomas never told her, but dread lingered. He knew her life had been borrowed, and such gifts were never given freely. Her youth flashed before his eyes. Before he could blink, there she was, a beautiful young woman. Menu Herd came. She caught the eye of many a young man in their village. Time was running out. He could not bring himself to tell her. He just couldn't. And then she found a husband, and she became a woman, and her own belly swelled with life. For Thomas, the shadows and terror returned with a vengeance. Every night he dreamt of Clara's scared screams and of their baby's silence. Ava's dead silence. It was too much. Thomas searched every grave, every forgotten tome. He talked to old ladies, hoping they might be witches. He visited the city and spent days poring over old tomes about fairies, witchcraft, and anything even remotely relevant. For nearly 2 decades, he found nothing until one day when Ava's belly swelled large, warning of a coming arrival. He frantically tore through Clara's old things. He became angry at fate, and he ripped and tore through old clothing, books, and trinket boxes. In his wild rage, his fist hit a wooden panel on the back of the closet floor, and pop, a hidden panel popped open. He found a tiny journal inside. It was written in Clara's beautiful handwriting, the same he had fallen in love with as a young man, writing letter after daily letter during their courting, and there he found the secret that he had never been told. He had always assumed that the power came from the tiny coffin, but no, it came from the earth itself, from the old rowan tree near the graves Clara had chosen. The pact was ancient, druidic perhaps, bound to the roots of that tree, fed by blood and silence. He saw the words, "Motto infauché, bu through vi." Clara had written them over and over again, filling pages. It was clear that she was terrified that she would get them wrong. Her only knowledge of the whole magic spell, or blessing, or curse, was contained in one enigmatic paragraph near the back of the journal.
Under the rowan tree, a sun for thee, be still, the roots run deep,
a daughter for a daughter until the sun is done, and the mother sees her child only in sleep, around and under the ground. This song is not ended, this thread not unspun, for blood buys breath, and breath feeds need, until beneath the rowan lies the sun. Be still, the crows will sing, the mother weeps, the daughter dreams. 3 times bound and thrice returned, be still, through love and screams. A son beneath, a daughter above, the gift of pain, the grave of love. And then, one last entry. Mother came to me in a dream again last night. She sang the song again. I'm so scared. Clara had known, or maybe she only had some strange prophetic dreams. He would never know for sure. Thomas went directly to his daughter, now with the midwife and deep in the pain of birth. She found a moment to breathe, and she saw him on his knees by the bed, holding her hand. For the first time in her life, she saw real light in his eyes, although tears rolled down his face. He said, I love you, Ava. He leaned over and gave her a hug, and then he whispered in her ear, live in my place, live through me. Ava's eyes went wide, as if to say, how does he know? But then she saw the smile and the hope in his eyes, and she felt that all would be all right, even as he left the cottage, and the pain of savage contractions returned to torture her body. In the final hour, as his daughter screamed just beyond the chapel wall, Thomas dug up Clara's grave. The coffin was still there, empty, pristine, smelling of honeysuckle and clover. He stood above it, drenched in sweat and rain, and knew what must be done. He climbed inside. The air inside was warm. He whispered nothing. He simply lay back and closed the lid. In the blackness, as pain crept through his limbs and breath grew thin, he heard a voice, not in his ear, but in the marrow of his bones. Yes, Thomas, I believe this will do. This will do nicely. Darkness swallowed him, but before it took him entirely, he heard it, coming from the bedroom window, not so far away. A baby, crying hard.